Teens vanished in forest. 1 year later, a hiker found a camera buried in the dirt. The permission slip sat inside on Principal Whitaker's desk, his reading glasses perched at the end of his nose as he studied the 5 eager faces standing before him. A camping trip without faculty supervision? He shook his head slowly. You know I can't officially approve this. Mia Bennett shifted her weight from one foot to the other. She was the one who had organized this. Their last spring break as seniors at Millfield High. Their last chance to do something memorable together before college scattered them across the country. My brother Caleb is coming with us, she said, her voice steady with practiced confidence. He's 18, an Eagle Scout, and he's supervised junior trips for the Scouts before. He knows Rockwood Forest better than anyone. Principal Whitaker's eyebrows rose slightly. Caleb Bennett? The one who rescued those hikers last summer when that thunderstorm rolled in? Mia nodded, trying not to look too eager. Caleb's minor local fame had its uses. The story had made the front page of the town newspaper. Her brother had led 2 lost hikers back to safety when flash flooding trapped them in a narrow canyon. The modest celebrity that followed had been uncomfortable for Caleb, but it had given him a reputation for level-headedness that was now playing perfectly into Mia's plans. Well, the principal tapped his fingers on the desk. I can't officially sanction this, but I won't actively prevent it either, if Caleb is truly going to be responsible for you all. A collective sigh of relief escaped the group. Just promise me you'll all be careful, he added, looking at each of them in turn. The forest can be unpredictable in spring. We promise, they chorused, already backing toward the door before he could change his mind. Outside in the hallway, Tyler Reeves pumped his fist in the air. Yes. Operation Spring Break is a go. Told you Caleb was our golden ticket. Mia grinned, pulling out her phone. I'll text him the good news. Your brother's actually cool with spending spring break babysitting a bunch of high schoolers? Asked Jessica Kim, adjusting her glasses. The most cautious of their group, she'd been the hardest to convince. Are you kidding? He loves this stuff, Mia replied, though she knew it wasn't entirely true. Caleb had agreed, but reluctantly. He had his own plans for spring break that he'd had to adjust. Still, he'd eventually given in to her persistent pleas. He always did. Plus, added Dylan Matthews with a playful nudge to Jessica's shoulder. He's only 2 years older than us. It's not like he's some ancient chaperone. Ancient like Mr. Peterson, snickered Amber Rodriguez, referring to their chemistry teacher who had to be pushing 70. The 5 of them made their way down the corridor, planning gear and supplies. They'd been friends since freshman year, an unlikely quintet brought together by a group project in biology. Mia was the organizer, Tyler the athlete, Jessica the brain, Dylan the class clown, and Amber the artistic one who documented everything. Speaking of documenting, Amber said, as if reading Mia's thoughts, I'm bringing my new GoPro. Mom got it for my birthday last month, and I've been dying to use it for something epic. Perfect, Tyler nodded. We need to capture every moment. This is going to be legendary. 3 days later, Caleb Bennett loaded the last backpack into his weathered Jeep Cherokee and slammed the trunk shut. The morning air was crisp, promising a perfect early spring day. The teens were buzzing with excitement, checking their phones one last time before signal would become a luxury of civilization. Everyone got their gear? Caleb asked, scanning the pile of equipment. At 20, he looked older, his face weathered from countless hours outdoors, his posture that of someone used to carrying responsibility on his shoulders. Once we're at the trailhead, there's no turning back for forgotten supplies. We've got everything, Mia assured him, hopping into the passenger seat. I triple-checked the list myself. Jessica climbed into the back seat, her expression a mixture of excitement and apprehension. My mom made me pack extra first aid supplies. She watches too many survival shows. Smart woman, Caleb replied, more seriously than Jessica had expected. Never hurts to be prepared. The drive to Rockwood National Forest took nearly 2 hours, the suburban sprawl giving way to rolling farmland, then thickening forests. Conversation flowed easily among the teens, punctuated by laughter, and the occasional burst of song when a favorite track came on the radio. Caleb remained quiet, focused on the road, occasionally catching Mia's eye with a small smile. For Mia, these moments with her brother had become increasingly rare. Since he'd started college 2 years ago, their paths crossed only during holidays and the occasional weekend when he wasn't working or studying. This trip was as much about reconnecting with him as it was about creating memories with her friends. The Jeep turned onto a gravel road, jostling its passengers as it wound deeper into the forest. Towering pines cast dappled shadows across the windshield, and the air coming through the open windows smelled of earth and growth. "Almost there," Caleb announced as they approached the ranger station at the entrance to the park. He pulled up to the small wooden building and rolled down his window. A middle-aged ranger with a salt and pepper beard approached. "Morning, folks. Heading in for some camping?" "Yes, sir," Caleb replied, handing over the permits he'd arranged online. 5 nights at the Upper Basin site. The ranger reviewed the paperwork, glancing at the vehicle full of eager teenagers. "You the one in charge of this crew?" "That's right. I'm an Eagle Scout, been coming to Rockwood since I was 10. The ranger nodded approvingly. "Good to hear. Basin's beautiful this time of year, but we've had some late snow melt feeding the streams. Some of the lower crossings might be running high." He handed back the permits. "Make sure you mark your trail if you venture off the main paths." "Will do," Caleb promised. "And you folks all have working flashlights and whistles?" the ranger asked, directing his question to the back seat. "Yes, sir," Tyler answered, patting his backpack. 3 whistles, 5 flashlights, and extra batteries." "Smart kid," the ranger approved. "You all have a good trip now. Check in when you head out." As they pulled away from the station, Amber already had her GoPro out, filming their entrance into the park. "Day 1 of the greatest spring break ever," she narrated. "Future historians take note." "You're such a dork." Dylan laughed, making a face at the camera. "Future Dylan will thank me for preserving his youthful beauty," Amber retorted, zooming in dramatically on his nose. The road narrowed as they continued, eventually ending at a small clearing that served as a parking area. Beyond it, a trailhead marked the beginning of their journey. "This is it," Caleb announced, parking the Jeep. "From here we hike." The teens piled out, stretching cramped limbs and breathing in the forest air. The sounds of civilization had fallen away completely, replaced by birdsong and the distant murmur of running water. "How far to the campsite?" Jessica asked, adjusting her pack straps. "About 4 miles," Caleb replied, hoisting his own large pack with practiced ease. "Mostly gentle terrain, but one steep stretch toward the end. We should make it well before sunset if we keep a decent pace." As they prepared to set out, Amber set up her GoPro on a small tripod. "Everyone get in frame," she directed, backing up to join the group. "First official documentation of the Bennett-led expedition into the wilderness." They gathered together, arms around shoulders, faces bright with anticipation, the vast forest stretching behind them. None of them could have imagined that this cheerful image would be studied by police investigators a week later, or that it would eventually appear on national news broadcasts with the caption, "Missing Teens, Last Known Photograph." In that moment, all they knew was the thrill of adventure and the promise of 5 days of freedom ahead. Caleb checked his watch, then nodded toward the trail. "Let's move out. Daylight's burning." And with that, they shouldered their packs and set off into the trees, leaving behind the last vestiges of safety and civilization, footsteps full of confidence, hearts light with excitement, completely unaware that only one of them would ever return to tell the story of what happened on the unmarked trails of Rockwood Forest. GoPro footage, timestamp 10:37 p.m. Day 1. Amber's camera captured the golden-orange glow of campfire flames dancing across 5 smiling faces. Their tents, one for the girls, one for the boys, stood like sentinels in the background, silhouetted against the darkening forest. Caleb had helped them find the perfect spot, a small clearing beside a babbling creek, sheltered by a half-circle of towering pines. And then Mr. Kaufman said, "That's not a chemical reaction, that's just your breakfast burrito from the cafeteria." Dylan finished his story, sending the others into fits of laughter. Your impression is terrifying. Jessica giggled, wiping tears from her eyes. Caleb leaned back against a fallen log, nursing a mug of instant coffee. His expression was relaxed but distracted. Twice he checked his phone, though everyone knew there was no signal this deep in the forest. Expecting a call from your girlfriend? Tyler teased, noticing the gesture. Just checking the time. Caleb replied with an easy smile. We should turn in soon if we want to explore tomorrow. The sunrise from Eagle Ridge is worth the early wake-up. Mia studied her brother's face in the firelight. Something felt off, but she couldn't place it. They'd spent the day hiking, setting up camp, and filtering water from the creek. Caleb had been attentive and helpful, showing the others how to properly secure their food and the trees away from wildlife and teaching Tyler the basics of fire starting with flint. Who's up for ghost stories? Amber asked, turning the GoPro toward herself. Not me, Jessica protested. I actually want to sleep tonight. The footage showed them eventually settling down, the fire reduced to embers. Caleb was the last one up, methodically checking the campsite before ducking into the boys' tent. The camera, set on a stump to capture the peaceful night scene, eventually switched off automatically to conserve battery. GoPro footage, timestamp 7:24 a.m. Day 2. Morning, Wilderness Warriors! Amber's cheerful voice came from behind the camera as she panned across the campsite, capturing the morning mist rising from the creek. Mia and Jessica were already up, tending to a small breakfast fire. Where's your brother? Amber asked, zooming in on Mia's face. Mia shrugged. Probably went for an early hike, or something. You know how he is, probably scouting the trail ahead. Dylan emerged from the boys' tent, hair sticking up in all directions. Man, I slept like a rock. Is coffee happening? Tyler still unconscious? Jessica asked, stirring a pot of oatmeal. Yeah, but he'll rise for food. Dylan yawned, then looked around. Where's our fearless leader? Not sure, Mia replied, a slight frown appearing between her brows. His sleeping bag was empty when I got up. Probably taking a nature break. Dylan snickered, making a crude gesture that Amber swatted away. The footage cut forward 2 hours. The timestamp read 9:38 a.m. The camera now showed 5 increasingly concerned faces sitting in a circle. He wouldn't just leave without saying anything, Mia insisted, her earlier nonchalance replaced by visible worry. That's not like him. Did he say anything to anyone last night? Jessica asked, looking between the boys. After we went to our tent? Tyler shook his head. We just talked about the fishing spots he wanted to show us today. He seemed normal. His backpack is gone, Amber noted from behind the camera. And his boots. So he went for a hike, Dylan reasoned. Maybe he's getting firewood or checking out that ridge he mentioned. For 3 hours? Mia's voice cracked slightly. Without leaving a note? The footage jumped ahead again. The timestamp showed 1:15 p.m. The camera captured snippets of the teens calling Caleb's name, their voices echoing through the trees with increasing desperation. Caleb! Mia's shout was tinged with panic now. The GoPro, attached to her backpack strap, bobbed with each step as she climbed a small rise to get a better view of the surrounding area. Anything? Tyler called from below. Nothing. Mia's hands appeared in frame, visibly shaking as she wiped sweat from her forehead. As the day progressed, the footage documented their search efforts, marking trees with bright orange surveyor's tape they'd brought for trailblazing, leaving notes at the campsite in case Caleb returned, checking the nearby creek banks and ridgelines. Jessica tried her phone for the dozenth time. Still no signal. And my battery's down to 15%. Save it, Tyler advised. We might need it later. The last clip of the day showed the 5 teens back at camp as dusk fell, faces drawn with worry. They'd decided to stay put, hoping Caleb would find his way back in the darkness. He wouldn't just leave, Mia repeated, staring into the campfire. The camera caught the glint of unshed tears in her eyes. He wouldn't. But as night enveloped the forest for the second time, With no sign of Caleb, a terrible thought began to take root in their minds. Perhaps they had been abandoned. GoPro footage, timestamp 8:14 a.m. day 3. We need to stick together and stay put. Jessica's voice was firm as she arranged pine cones in a pattern on their crude map scratched into the dirt. Search and rescue always says to stay where you are when lost. We're not lost, Tyler countered, pacing around the campsite. The camera caught his agitated movements as Amber documented their growing dispute. The trail is right there. We just follow it back the way we came. And what if Caleb comes back while we're gone? Mia asked, her face pale and drawn from a sleepless night. We can't just leave. Dylan kicked at a stone, sending it skittering into the underbrush. Wake up, Mia. He's been gone for 24 hours. He's not coming back. Don't say that. Mia's voice cracked. We need to face facts. Dylan continued, softer now. Either something happened to him or... The unfinished sentence hung in the air. No one wanted to voice the alternative. Look, Tyler said, squatting down beside their map. I'm not waiting around to see which it is. Our food won't last forever. I say we pack up and head back to the ranger station. I agree with Tyler, Amber said from behind the camera. We still have the trail markers from yesterday's search. We can leave a note for Caleb. Jessica shook her head stubbornly. Splitting up is the worst thing we can do. We're not splitting up, Tyler insisted. We're all going. The camera caught Mia's torn expression. Fine, she finally conceded. But we leave detailed directions and a timeline. If, when he comes back, he'll know where to find us. GoPro footage, timestamp 2:38 p.m. day 3. Dark clouds had rolled in, casting an ominous shadow over the forest. The camera, now strapped to Tyler's backpack, captured unsteady footage of the teens trudging through increasingly thick brush. This can't be right. Jessica's voice came from somewhere behind. We should have hit the main trail by now. We've been walking for hours, Amber complained, her earlier confidence waning. Are you sure this is the way we came in? Tyler stopped, causing the camera to steady momentarily on a twisted oak tree. I thought so. But nothing looks familiar anymore. The footage jumped ahead. Rain now pelted the lens as thunder rumbled overhead. The teens huddled beneath a rocky overhang, their faces grim masks of fear and exhaustion. We're going in circles, Dylan said, voice barely audible over the storm. Did anyone mark our way from camp? Silence answered him. I thought you were doing that, Mia finally said, turning to Tyler. I was following you. This is just perfect. Dylan laughed mirthlessly. First Caleb ditches us, now we're lost in a thunderstorm. He didn't ditch us, Mia snapped, but her defense sounded hollow even to her own ears. Then where is he, Mia? Dylan's voice rose. Where the hell is your responsible Eagle Scout brother when we actually need him? Jessica put an arm around Mia's shoulders as they began to shake with silent sobs. GoPro footage, timestamp 9:17 p.m. day 3. The camera's night vision mode cast an eerie green glow over their makeshift shelter. They'd managed to find their way back to the campsite, but the storm had intensified. One tent had partially collapsed under the relentless downpour. My sleeping bag is soaked, Amber whispered, the camera propped on her knees as she recorded a private diary entry. Her face was illuminated by the faint light, tears mixing with raindrops on her cheeks. We can't even light a fire to dry out. Mom, Dad, if you ever see this. Her voice caught. I'm sorry I didn't listen when you said these woods were dangerous. She wiped her eyes. Something weird is going on. I keep thinking about how Caleb checked his phone last night, even though we all knew there was no signal here. And Tyler found an empty duffel bag stuffed under some leaves when we were searching. Caleb must have hidden it, but why? I don't understand what's happening, but I'm scared. We all are. GoPro footage, timestamp 11:42 a.m. day 4. The camera showed the sodden remnants of their campsite. Their supplies had diminished considerably, just 2 granola bars each and whatever water they could collect and purify from the rainfall. We have to try again, Tyler insisted, pointing to a ridge in the distance. If we can get higher up, maybe we can see the road, or at least figure out which direction to go. I don't think we should leave the water source, Jessica argued, but with less conviction than before. The footage jumped ahead to show the group hiking through dense forest. The GoPro, attached to a backpack strap, captured their slow progress and the gradually dawning horror as familiar landmarks appeared. This is the same clearing," Amber said, her voice hollow with disbelief. "We've been walking for 3 hours and somehow ended up back where we started." Dylan sank to his knees. "We're going to die out here." "No, we're not," Jessica insisted, though her voice trembled. "People know where we are. They'll come looking." "Will they?" Tyler asked bitterly. "The only person who knows exactly where we set up camp is Caleb." The final clip of the day showed the 5 teens sharing their meager rations around a small, struggling fire they'd finally managed to light. Night was falling again, and with it, their hopes of rescue. "We should never have trusted him," a voice whispered, too low to identify which teen had spoken the damning words. But as the camera's battery indicator flashed red, it was clear they all shared the same terrible thought. Caleb Bennett had abandoned them to the wilderness, and no one was coming to save them. The Millfield Chronicle's headline screamed in bold black letters, "5 teens missing in Rockwood Forest." Below it, 5 senior yearbook photos smiled innocently beside a map of the sprawling national forest, red circles indicating the general search area. In the ranger station that had become the command center for the search operation, Sheriff Marcus Holt studied the map with bloodshot eyes. 4 days had passed since the teens' parents had reported them missing after failed attempts to reach their children by phone. "Any sign of the vehicle?" he asked Deputy Collins, who had just returned from checking the trailhead parking area again. "Still there. Dust covered but undisturbed." Collins handed him a manila folder. "Park records confirmed they checked in 6 days ago. No checkout registered." The sheriff rubbed his temples. 100 volunteers had combed the most accessible areas of the forest. Search dogs had picked up scents but lost them at a creek. Helicopter flyovers had revealed nothing but endless green canopy. "What about the brother? Any word?" Holt asked. As if in answer, the radio crackled to life. "Base, this is Team Echo. We've got someone, repeat, we've found someone coming down the eastern trail. Adult male, appears disoriented. Matches the description of Caleb Bennett. Over." The sheriff snatched up the radio. "Is he alone?" Over. Affirmative. "No sign of the others. He's asking for water and looks pretty rough. We're bringing him in. ETA 20 minutes. Over." When Caleb Bennett arrived at the command center, he barely resembled the confident Eagle Scout from the permit photo. His clothes were torn and mud-stained. A 3-day beard shadowed his hollow cheeks, and a makeshift bandage wrapped his left hand. Dark circles ringed his eyes, giving him a haunted appearance. Medical personnel attended to him immediately while Sheriff Holt waited impatiently nearby. Caleb's parents had already been notified and were on their way from Millfield. The press was being kept at a distance, but their cameras captured his arrival, a solitary figure emerging from the forest, head bowed. "Dehydrated but stable," the paramedic informed Holt. "He can talk, but don't push him too hard." Holt nodded and pulled up a chair beside the cot where Caleb lay, and 4 drip feeding fluids into his arm. "Caleb," the sheriff began gently, "I need to ask you about the others." Caleb's eyes welled with tears. "I tried to find them," he whispered hoarsely. "I've been searching for days." "Start from the beginning," Holt urged. "What happened out there?" Caleb's story emerged in broken fragments. According to him, the first day and night went according to plan. But on the second morning, the teens had been eager to explore deeper trails than he deemed safe. "I went to refill our water bottles at the creek," he explained, voice cracking. "Told them to stay put. Couldn't have been gone more than 30 minutes. When I got back, they were gone. All 5 of them? Just left?" Holt's skepticism was evident. Caleb nodded weakly. Mia, my sister, she left a note saying they wanted to check out Echo Canyon. I told them that area was off limits, too dangerous this time of year with the snow melt. His voice broke. They were being reckless. Thought they knew better. And you went after them? Immediately. But they had at least a 20-minute head start, and they weren't following the marked trails. I tracked them for hours, calling their names. He lifted his bandaged hand. Fell down a ravine that evening. Hit my head. When I came to, it was dark. I've been searching ever since, trying to find my way back to get help. The story had holes. Why hadn't he come straight to the ranger station? How had 5 inexperienced hikers vanished so completely? But Caleb's apparent distress seemed genuine, and his injuries were real. When his parents arrived, his mother collapsed into sobs at the sight of him, while his father stood stone-faced, asking repeatedly about Mia. The scene made for powerful television footage that evening, the tearful reunion overshadowed only by the continuing mystery of the 5 missing teens. Days stretched into weeks. The search expanded, then contracted, then focused on specific areas based on Caleb's recollections. Teams dragged sections of the river. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Nothing was found, no bodies, no backpacks, no discarded equipment. Throughout it all, Caleb maintained his story. He accompanied search teams daily, his face a mask of grief and guilt. If only I'd been stricter with them, he told reporters in a rare interview. If only I hadn't left them alone even for a minute. Public sympathy swelled for the young man who had lost his sister and her friends on his watch. Few questioned his account. After all, he had risked his life searching for days, sustained injuries, and was cooperating fully with authorities. The parents of the missing teens were less easily convinced. My daughter wouldn't just wander off, Jessica's mother insisted during a press conference. She was the cautious one. But as weeks passed without evidence, even the most suspicious began to accept that they might never know the full truth. The search was officially scaled back after a month, though volunteers continued to comb the forest on weekends. A small memorial service was held at Millfield High School. 5 empty chairs sat on the stage, draped with flowers. Caleb attended, head bowed, accepting condolences with quiet dignity. He had become a living symbol of tragic leadership, the young man who had done everything right and still lost those in his care to the wilderness. 2 months after the disappearance, when media attention had faded, Caleb Bennett quietly moved away. He had been accepted to a college on the opposite coast, his parents explained to neighbors. A fresh start was what he needed. The case of the Rockwood Forest 5, as they had come to be known, was relegated to the cold case files. Sheriff Holt would occasionally revisit the evidence, troubled by inconsistencies in Caleb's story, but without bodies or witnesses, there was nothing to pursue. The forest kept its secrets well, until exactly 1 year later, when chance would uncover the truth that Caleb Bennett had worked so hard to bury. Dr. Marcus Reed adjusted his backpack straps and checked his GPS coordinates against the weathered trail map. A botany professor at the State University, he spent most spring weekends hiking Rockwood Forest, cataloging plant species for his research. Today's expedition had taken him deeper than usual, following the bloom patterns of a rare orchid. As he crouched to photograph a particularly vibrant specimen, something unnatural caught his eye, a corner of orange plastic protruding from beneath a rotting log about 10 feet off the main trail. Curiosity piqued, Reed moved closer and brushed away the accumulated leaf litter. "What the hell?" he muttered, extracting what appeared to be a waterproof camera case, its bright orange shell muddied but intact. Inside, cushioned in foam, lay a GoPro camera, remarkably preserved. Reed turned it over in his hands. Any other hiker might have pocketed the find, but something about its deliberate burial troubled him. He recalled the missing teenager's case from the previous year. It had dominated local news for months. Hadn't they mentioned cameras in the reports? That evening, after returning to the ranger station, Reed handed over his discovery. "Found this buried under a fallen tree," he explained to Ranger Michaels, who had been examining plant samples with him earlier. "About 4 miles in, near Cougar Ridge. Might be nothing, but..." Michael's expression shifted as she examined the case. This location, it's within the search grid from the Bennett case. She looked up sharply. This could be significant. Sheriff Holt sat motionless in his office, the color drained from his weathered face as he stared at the computer screen. Beside him, Deputy Collins and District Attorney Valeria Martinez watched with equal intensity. On screen, the recovered GoPro footage played, remarkably clear due to its waterproof case. The first clips showed exactly what they expected: teenage laughter, campfire stories, innocent adventure. Then came the crucial morning footage: the empty sleeping bag, the initial confusion, the growing concern. "Pause it," Martinez instructed as the footage showed Caleb's backpack area. "Go back 10 seconds and play it again." The deputy obliged, freezing on a frame that clearly showed Caleb's sleeping area the night before. A small duffel bag was partially visible beneath his backpack. Now forward to the morning search. In the daylight shots, the duffel was conspicuously absent. "He packed a separate bag," Collins murmured. "Premeditated." "Keep going," Holt said grimly. The footage continued, documenting the teens' panic, their search efforts, their failed attempt to find their way out. With each clip, the case they had closed a year ago unraveled further. Most damning was Amber's private diary entry, recorded during the thunderstorm. Her tearful face filled the screen as she whispered, "If anyone finds this, please tell my mom Caleb left us. He just disappeared. This wasn't an accident." Then came the final clips, increasingly desperate, the teens rationing their last food, arguing about which direction to try next, their gradually weakening states. The final recording showed Jessica, seemingly the last one with enough energy to operate the camera, burying it in the waterproof case beneath a fallen tree. "If anyone ever finds this," her voice trembled, "please tell our parents we tried to survive. And tell them Caleb Bennett is a liar." The timestamp on the final clip was a full 5 days after Caleb had reappeared, claiming he'd been searching for them all along. Silence filled the sheriff's office as the footage ended. "Every word out of that kid's mouth was a lie," Holt finally said, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "He abandoned them, then came back and spun that story about them wandering off while he was getting water. The media's going to have a field day with this," Collins remarked. "Golden Boy Eagle Scout left 5 kids to die, then played the grieving hero." Martinez was already on her phone. "I'm calling Judge Ramsey for an arrest warrant. We can have extradition papers ready by morning." "What about GPS data?" Holt asked, turning to the forensic tech who had been silent throughout the viewing. "Can we extract anything from this camera?" The tech nodded. "Already working on it. Preliminary analysis shows coordinates embedded in some of the later clips. They were moving northwest, away from the main trails. Away from where Caleb directed our search teams," Holt noted bitterly. "He sent us in the opposite direction. Deliberately. Why?" Collins wondered. Why abandon them at all? What was so important that he'd leave his own sister to die? The answer came 3 hours later when the tech rushed into Holt's office with another discovery. "I found deleted clips from the first night," he announced, setting his laptop down. "Someone tried to erase them, but they were recoverable from the memory card." The recovered footage showed a brief moment when the camera, apparently forgotten by its owner, continued recording. It captured Caleb outside the tents, phone in hand, squinting at the screen in the firelight. Though there was no signal for calls, he was reading something, text messages downloaded during their last moments of connectivity before entering the forest. Caleb's face in the footage shifted from concern to determination. "Change of plans?" he muttered to himself, unaware of the recording device. "Sorry, sis." The tech paused the video. "I checked his phone records from that time. Last message received before they went out of range was from someone named Jake Thornton." He slid a printout across the desk. Quote, "Dude, party at Palmer Lake this weekend is gonna be epic. Summer's apartment, everyone going. Last chance before she leaves for Europe. Don't miss it." Martinez's lips thinned. "So that's it? He abandoned 5 teenagers in the wilderness, for a party? Not just any party," Collins interjected, recognition dawning. Palmer Lake is where 3 college students drowned that same weekend. Alcohol poisoning, hypothermia. It was all over the news, happened the night after the teens were reported missing. Holt stood up, years of frustration coalescing into cold determination. Get that warrant. I want Caleb Bennett in custody by tomorrow night. And call the parents. They deserve to know the truth before this hits the news. The GPS coordinates from the camera would finally lead search teams to where the teenagers had actually gone, and to whatever remained of them after a year in the wilderness. The buried truth was finally unearthed, but for 5 families, justice would be a cold comfort indeed. The arrest of Caleb Bennett made national headlines. Security cameras at the Denver airport captured the moment. Federal agents approaching the gate as he prepared to board a flight to Barcelona, a hastily planned study abroad opportunity. He'd arranged hours after news broke about the recovered camera. For the families of the Rockwood Forest 5, watching Caleb led away in handcuffs brought a complicated mixture of vindication and fresh grief. The press conference Sheriff Holt held afterward was standing room only, reporters from across the country crowding the small Millfield police station. Based on the evidence recovered from the GoPro camera and subsequent investigation, we have charged Caleb Bennett with 5 counts of criminal negligence resulting in death, obstruction of justice, and making false statements to law enforcement. Holt announced, his normally stoic demeanor cracking slightly. What should have been a simple rescue operation turned into a year-long tragedy because of Mr. Bennett's deliberate actions and lies. Outside the courthouse following Caleb's arraignment, his parents faced a barrage of questions. Mrs. Bennett, who had collapsed upon learning the truth about her son, was absent. Mr. Bennett stood alone, aged beyond recognition by grief and shame. I have no explanation for what my son did, he told reporters, voice hollow. We raised him better than this. There's nothing I can say to the other parents except, I'm sorry. So deeply sorry. The recovery operation began the day after coordinates from the camera were analyzed. Using GPS data extracted from the final video clips, search teams were directed to an area 6 miles northwest of where Caleb had insisted the teens had gone, a remote section of the forest with steep ravines and dense underbrush. On the 3rd day of searching, they found the first body. Tyler Reeves had apparently fallen from a ridge, likely while trying to get a better vantage point. His remains were identified through dental records and a school ring still on his finger. 2 days later, Jessica Kim and Dylan Matthews were discovered in what appeared to have been their final camp, a crude shelter of branches and leaves. They had died in their sleep, the coroner later determined, from exposure and dehydration. Amber Rodriguez and Mia Bennett remained missing, though items from their backpacks were recovered along a dried stream bed, suggesting they had tried to follow the water source out of the forest, a sound survival strategy that had come too late. In the sterile confines of the county jail's interview room, Caleb Bennett finally broke down under questioning. With his attorney present, he confessed to exactly what the evidence had already revealed. He had abandoned the teens to attend a party, assuming they would either find their way out or wait for him to return the next day. I never meant for anyone to get hurt, he insisted, tears streaming down his hollowed cheeks. It was just supposed to be one night. I was going to be back before they even woke up. But you weren't, District Attorney Martinez pointed out coldly. And when you finally did return to the forest, you never went to their actual location. Instead, you fabricated a story that sent search teams in the wrong direction. Caleb's shoulders slumped. I panicked. When I got back and saw the official search underway, I knew I'd be blamed. I couldn't face it. So I created a scenario where I wasn't at fault, while your sister and her friends were still out there. Still alive, according to the timestamps on their final videos. This truth seemed to break something fundamental in Caleb. His confession became incoherent with sobs as the full weight of his actions finally settled on him. In exchange for his full cooperation, prosecutors agreed not to seek the maximum sentence. Still, Caleb Bennett was sentenced to 15 years in prison, 3 years for each life lost because of his negligence and subsequent deception. 6 months after Caleb's sentencing, The body of Mia Bennett was recovered following heavy rainfall that changed the landscape of a remote canyon. Her brother, now inmate number 4872953, was permitted to attend her funeral under guard. The photographs of him in shackles, standing at his sister's grave, became symbolic images in outdoor safety campaigns nationwide. Amber Rodriguez was never found, though her camera, the instrument of ultimate justice, was enshrined in a memorial at Millfield High School, alongside photographs of the 5 teenagers. The case, which became known as the Rockwood Betrayal, permanently changed wilderness safety protocols across the country. The recovered footage was used in training programs for outdoor educators, search and rescue teams, and high school outdoor clubs. Never Alone became the mantra of a national camping safety initiative, with the faces of the Rockwood Five a somber reminder of the potential consequences of irresponsibility. On the anniversary of their disappearance, the trails of Rockwood Forest now close for a day of remembrance. Hikers leave small stones at a memorial erected at the trailhead, each one representing a promise to look out for their companions in the wilderness. For Sheriff Holt, who kept the case file open long after others would have closed it, the resolution brought professional vindication but personal anguish. At his retirement ceremony, when asked about his most impactful case, he spoke of the Rockwood Five. "What haunts me isn't just that they died," he told the gathered crowd. "It's that they died believing no one was looking for them in the right place. That they were forgotten." He paused, emotion temporarily overtaking him. "But they weren't forgotten. And because of what we learned from them, countless others will be safer. That's their legacy." The parents of the 5 teens eventually established a foundation that funds wilderness survival training for youth. Their mission statement, displayed prominently on their website, features a quote from Jessica Kim's final video. "Tell them we tried to survive. And they did more than that." Through their documented struggle, they ultimately saved others from similar fates, a consequence that brought a measure of meaning to a tragedy born of one person's negligence and the lies spun to cover it up.